Welcome to Wild West Garage. My name is Morgan, and I'm standing in front of a beautifully restored 1970 Nova SS with a 350. Now this car is not restored to what I would say original condition. I think people refer to these as resto mods. It's not the factory color. It does have a V8 code on the cowl tag, and you know this isn't my car. It belongs to a friend of mine. I didn't do any work on this car other than what I did just the last few days. So I don't know a whole lot about it. So I thought, yeah, I wonder if this car is actually a real SS. So I went online, and you know, as far as Novas go, there are no actual codes on the VIN tag, on the cowl tag, that denote whether or not this car is truly an SS. So the only thing, I guess, and I don't know if SS cars came with 6 cylinders, I kind of doubt that. So it is a V8 car. That's the only thing, that's the only clue to whether or not this is an SS or not. So anyways, you know, it's got all the right stuff. It's got the right hood, those phony hood grill things. It's got the SS badges. It's got the 350 tag on the side here. So it's interesting. So I think maybe the SS Nova was kind of an afterthought for GM. Maybe they just thought, hey, let's throw some V8s in these cars. You could get it with a 350 or a 396, as far as I know. So, and maybe that's, well, I guess it's a V8 code, so they knew they were going to do that, right? So that's really the only clue. So anyways, it's a nice car, and so I'm about to do something. Well, I've already done it, but so what did on this car was I changed the rear end gear ratio from a 466 to the 355, I believe. 355, yeah. Yeah, it was a 466, and I changed it to a 355. So, you know, I didn't have the proper tools. I talk about that. I didn't have the pinion depth gauge, and I think I made some mistakes doing it. I haven't done this kind of thing for a while, but it all kind of worked out okay in the end. I haven't taken it for a test drive yet. I have run it up on the hoist. I don't hear any funny noises, no howling or anything, so see how it does on the road. And I did a few other little things to it, so I just have one more thing to do. There's an exhaust rattle, I gotta fix that. So anyways, I'm pretty much done with this car. So if you want to stick around and see what I did to it, please do. If you don't, then fair enough. You know, I'm gonna open the hood here and give you a look inside. Nice clean interior, console. 12-volt Posi rear end in it. This car is pretty much as shiny on the bottom as it is on the top. Nice and clean. You know, I wouldn't say it's a factory correct restoration, but it's definitely a clean job. It's very nice. It's not a show car. I mean, it's not a Riddler award winner by any means, but it's just a nice, clean, drivable street car. So I got the gears here, carrier. So I don't have a pinion depth gauge, so just been messing around here a little bit. I'll show you this pattern here. So better to show you here where I actually painted it. So I've had this carrier in and out of the housing, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. Had the pinion out, so I've shimmed it twice now, initially, and then I increased the shim thickness for the pinion bearing. So I'm trying to bring the pinion out into the, I'm trying to move the pinion in this direction toward the carrier. So you see the pattern there. So it's a little sharp on the root, like a root of the tooth. So that means, to me, that means the carrier needs to move toward the pinion. So I've done that by, I had about 20 thou backlash. So I added 5 thou to this side, subtracted 5 thou from this side. So that's going to move the carrier toward the pinion. And I'm going to add about 3 or 4 thou to the shim on the pinion to get it to move the pattern this way, deeper into the housing, right? So hopefully, so it'll move it down more onto the what do they call it? The toe. See here? There's this picture. See where that pattern is? It's down close to the toe, and it's not, well, it's hard to say. It's just a drawing, but I don't think that the pattern should look that sharp on the root of the tooth. It should be softer. So that just tells me that the edge of the tooth is engaging, like the square edge of the tooth is engaging onto here, and that'll cause a howl. So anyways, I think I'm going to have it this time. So we'll see. So you see this hole here and this hole here? That's for a tool. There's big dowels that go in here. And then there's this fixture that goes on here with a threaded rod. And it spreads the case. So it spreads, you know, the case this way and that way to open it up so you can get this carrier in and out of there easier. Of course, I don't have that tool, and I've got this, you know, to a pretty decent preload. So what I do, and I don't know if it's helping or not, I think it is. It certainly made it easier to put back in the last time. So I've just got this come along. You can see it's triangulated right to the pinion, to the yoke. So that's doing the same thing. If it's going to do anything, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to spread this, using the axle tubes as levers, spread this case open a bit. Anyways, I think it works. I'm going to believe it works. So I've got everything back together here, and I can't remember what I said, but I ended up with 51 thou shim on the pinion, and I don't know what the shim packs are on the side I got about 3.5 to 6.5 backlash, depending on where I measure it around the ring gear. So that's too little. I need 7 to 9. So what I'm probably going to do is just remove. I got quite a bit of preload on this. I think more than I need. So I'm going to remove maybe a thou or two from this side, and that'll allow it to move away from the pinion and give me a bit more backlash. I've got everything bolted up. Prior to this I wasn't putting the caps on, but it's amazing, it went from 9, I had 9 thou, and then I put the caps on, like I tapped it all in there tight, and then when I put them, it went from 9 to 6.5. So obviously fully assembled makes a difference, right? So anyways, I'm gonna pull this apart again. Actually, first I'm gonna check the pattern. I'm gonna pull it apart. I'm gonna put the crush sleeve on, put the pinion in for the final time, and then take a little bit out of this side, and that's gonna be it. I've messed around with this thing long enough. It's gonna be good. All right, so this is what I ended up with for a pattern. I'm not so happy with it, just because I'm not really. I still have that sort of hard line down in the root of the tooth. It's covering, and it kind of comes out, it doesn't quite come out to the edge of the tooth, but it is fairly centered. And then on the back side, you can see on the coast side, you can see how high it is up on the heel. So that kind of indicates to me that I got too much pinion depth. But I've had the pinion in and out of this thing 4 or 5 times now. I had way too much, I had way too much shim on the pinion at one point, and so I haven't done this in a while. So the mistake I made was when I set the pinion depth, or was guessing at it, whatever. I should have taken up the backlash and then checked it each time, but I was kind of guessing at what it was going to do. So, and then I added more shim to the pinion, and then it made it too deep, and I couldn't get a good pattern at all. So now I've taken out another, I had it at 55 thousandths, I think, shim, and I took out, it's at about 45 now. So probably could go a little lower, but I just had it with this thing. I think it's going to be okay. I think the dry side pattern is pretty good, so I'm just going to go with that. I could spend another 2 or 3 hours on it. That's the problem with not having a pinion depth gauge. You're just, you're guessing. But if you're going to do it by trial and error, put your pinion in, adjust your backlash to spec, check your pattern, and you'll get a better idea of what you're doing. I was just trying to fix backlash with pinion depth, and I think that was my mistake. See, I had at one point I had about 20 thou pinion depth, and I just looking at the pattern, I thought, so I had 20 thou backlash, and looking at the pattern, I thought I could increase the pinion depth and fix the pattern and take up backlash at the same time, but I think that was a mistake. Should have just, like I said, set your pinion, set your lash, and then check your pattern. If it's not right, then make a determination on what you got to do instead of trying to, missteps. Anyways, I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but these are probably the worst rear ends to set up because it's all shims. There's no side plates or anything that you can screw in and out. And so it's really time consuming. And I think if I had to do one of these again, I would find a pinion depth gauge and save myself a lot of trouble. So anyways, I think it's gonna be fine. We'll see when we see, I guess, to get it on the road and hear what it sounds like and all that. Hopefully it's gonna be quiet. And I'll be quiet. So there we go. The Nova has returned to its home. We did a little bit of driving with it. The rear end sounded good. It wasn't making any horrible noises or anything. The only thing I did notice was, say if you were kind of on not a real steep downhill, but just kind of coasting down like a low grade, and you fed a little throttle into it, it would make a bit of a noise, but no noise on cruising like up hills or even decelerating downhills, like with engine back pressure. There's no noise. It's just sort of in that float zone where there's not any real pressure on anything. That's when you could hear a bit of noise. So I would think that was probably coming from the coast side, because I didn't have a really good pattern on the coast side. So, because it was out on the heel, like to the outside of the crown. So anyways, that's my guess anyways. So I could have spent, I just sort of did a calculation in my head on how much more time I was going to have to spend on it, and it would have been 2 or 3 more hours. And considering how I had it, how I left it, and I had a pretty good pattern on the drive side, I just didn't think it was worth messing around with it anymore. And to be quite honest, I was getting a little frustrated. But I think those GM rear ends are probably the biggest pain in the butt to work on, because of how the only way you can adjust things is with shims. And I suppose really, if I had a pinion depth gauge, that would have made my life a lot easier. I could have set the pinion, got it close, where it was supposed to be, and then I would have been good. Or much better than I was from the start when I started going through this thing. And then I think if I had adjusted the backlash, like the side shims, each time I set the pinion, I would have had a better idea where I was going with it, because I was trying to guess like the cause and effect thing of bringing the pinion in deeper or whatever. And so I was trying to do 2 things at once, basically, and that I realized toward the end that didn't work. That's not working. So you set your pinion, make your best guess on the pinion shim, assemble it, bring your backlash into spec, and then make a determination on where you want to go from there. So if you're it's just too foggy if you don't have, if you don't have as much of if you don't have the things set up as close as you can to spec, regardless of what your pinion depth is. It's it's too, there's not enough to go by if you're guessing what's going to happen when you do different things. So you need to have a good reading. So anyways, next time I'm not going to do another one of those unless I have a way to set the pinion properly in the beginning. So it's just too frustrating, too time consuming, and it's not fair to the customer, it's not fair to me. It's just not a good thing. So anyways, and then the whole Nova SS thing, it just seems to me like you can get away with building a clone SS Nova because there's nothing on the there's nothing on the serial number to tell you whether or not it is an SS. And I don't know if that's the same way with all GM cars or what. I'm not that into that kind of thing. And I just wonder if maybe any Novas that are V8 cars are considered SS cars. I don't know. I really don't know that. So if anybody knows anything about that or knows anything about what I did with that rear end, please leave a comment. I would like to hear from you. So thanks for watching, and I'm looking forward to bringing you some action on Myrtle. I'm going to bring her over here onto the hoist bay and get to work on it today. So see you next time. Thanks.